Voilà.
The best thing about Paris is the
sights,
scenery.
Notre-Dame de Paris.
Notre-Dame.
Before the roof burnt down, obviously.
Yeah.
Une balade un dimanche et un pique-nique au parc.
Food here is just very fresh.
En français,
It's just fresh food.
beauty class bread.
Difficile, douloureux et tellement beau.
Imprévisible.
Very expensive.
Traffic.
You're risking your life trying to cross the road.
Bureaucracy is terrible over here.
Huge number of...
Rats.
The dog poo. It's everywhere.
And of course the pickpockets.
I haven't found a bad thing about living in Paris yet.
hectic, dog shit, chaos.
C'est magique. It's magical.
Yeah.
You know, découvrir Paris, c'est sans fin.
Marc Steel, en ville.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Welcome to Mark Steele's in Town, which this week comes from the small town of Paris in France, where nothing much has ever happened in history. And it's so brilliant at last to be able to do this show here as a celebration of how our two nations are now closer together than ever before. The people here are so humble and timid, and that's what they're known for. And you're especially known, Paris, for considering yourself less important than the rest of France. All day we hear you saying, we prefer the smaller towns. Paris is inferior to Nantes or Limoges. It's also the reason why Paris is so popular with the other towns, because people of the countryside, they come here every year to Paris for a little weekend break. They see the sights, they set fire to them and smash all the windows and go back refreshed. We are brilliantly on the most Parisian site here. We're in a boat on the River Seine, right opposite the Notre Dame, which makes me feel particularly safe because no mishap could possibly take place at such a historic site. I'm very happy to see the Notre Dame is being rebuilt, and I hope you look after it next time. It's also the only recording in 11 years of doing this show I've ever done where we are actually wobbling from side to side. The most brilliant thing, so yesterday, within about 5 minutes of arriving at the metro at the Gare du Nord, I went to buy a ticket and I gave him some money. Non, nous n'accepterons jamais l'argent maintenant. We don't accept money anymore. Avez-vous un carte? I said, yeah, I got my card out. He said, the machine doesn't work. It's in a mush truck. I said, well, what do we do then? And he went, And somehow, Paris, when you do that, you make it funny. I think this is like, one reason for loving Paris. When a Parisian is rude, they're rude with class. A woman told me that she was learning the piano, and after a few months, the woman who lived in the upstairs apartment knocked and said, is it you that's learning the piano? And she said, well, yes, it is. So the neighbour said, you're not making much progress, are you? During the lockdown, the whole city, of course, became a very different place because I think you love the tourists here. I think everyone I speak to, I get the sense that you adore all the tourists that come to see all the marvellous sights. This is what someone told me. During the lockdown, the whole city was empty and the Parisians loved the pandemic. And now the tourists are back, and I reckon quite a few people in Paris are now thinking, for our next holiday, I am going to go to China, to a market to eat some bats, come back, spend a week coughing on the metro, maybe get some peace again. I do have to accept, most English people haven't got a clue about France. Probably 90% of English people think your president is Napoleon. Most English people think there are 3 towns in France. There's Paris, there's a town called the south of France for the beach, and then there's Boulogne for buying cigarettes, and that's the lot. But everybody now knows all about Paris to some detail because they've seen Emily in Paris. This is Emily in Paris. You've all seen that? Oh, it's a wonderful documentary about the city that is stunningly accurate. It's an American film about a young American woman who comes here to work and she takes selfies in front of the Arc de Triomphe, and on the first day in the office, all the others say, Bonjour, Emily. We smoke all day. We are all lazy and drink wine at 8 in the morning. I have 25 mistresses. You would like to become the 26th? So, Paris, I think you should take revenge. You should make a film called Brigitte à Chicago. About a young French woman who goes to America to work, and on the first day her colleagues drill for oil, put on £30 and shoot 25 people in a shopping mall. Or maybe Emily in Paris is true. Maybe it is, and everyone here does smoke at work. It's possible. So the priest at the Notre Dame went, In nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti... Oh, merde. So... I came to France a few months before the lockdown on the boat from Dover to Calais, and P&O have this little office, one poor woman who sits behind a table, and in front of me there was a woman who didn't speak English. It was quite unusual. Now, half the people there must be French, because the boat just goes from France to England and back again. And honestly, this is true. So the woman in front of me, she got there and she said, Excusez-moi, madame, j'ai réservé un billet pour le bateau qui va partir après-midi aujourd'hui. And the English woman went, Oh, don't talk to me in French. My French is shit. And I thought there was something lovely about that. A humility. Because the British don't want to learn another language. We're proud of it. We go, no, I've not learned nothing. And we're proud of it. And even if we do learn a bit of French, usually English people will just be absolutely adamant that we are not going to learn the accent. That's enough. We've learned the words. So you'll get someone from East London who goes, Je m'appelle Elf. J'habite à West Ham. Qu'est-ce que tu regardes? Ma fiche. Pardon, mon fiche. If they're from Birmingham, they'll go, J'ai grandi à Digbeth, je préfère Solihull, mais je ne dois pas me plaindre. I heard a barman in an Irish bar, I think the one that's up by the canal there, from Belfast, and he said to someone, J'habite à Paris pendant 25 ans. But even if you do learn a bit of French, Parisians, you don't help. You prefer to destroy our confidence. I've been in a grocer's shop and said, Il fait bon, n'est-ce pas? What's he got? Beetroot. What's beetroot? Betterave. Les betteraves ont l'air frais ce matin, n'est-ce pas? J'espère que l'économie va améliorer, mais je m'inquiète d'augmentation d'inflation. And then I go to pay and he'll go, 12 euro! 12! That 12, I write it for you. Say 12, that's 12. And I want to go, I know the French for 12! You think I know how to compliment your beetroots, but I haven't learned how to count to 12? I've also recorded a French version of this show, so there will be two versions. I will make so many mistakes in the French version that the audience is going to think, what is he talking about? What is he said? He has said the camel is in the tomato. It's not comic, he is a philosopher. He will do well here. Here is the first lesson in French. Always say bonjour in a shop, isn't it? Always. And not bonjour. Bonjour. You've got to go for it. It's got to be a strong, healthy bonjour. A weedy bonjour is useless. Bonjour. That translates as I curse your gods and spit on your baguette. You go bonjour and then you get a reply. Bonjour. And if there's one available, take a trumpet. Bonjour. Because if your bonjour isn't up to scratch, you will be bonjour. 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 And then the next lesson is the greeting changes at a time that nobody understands. Bonjour. Non, c'est après-midi maintenant. If you say, well, when does après-midi begin? It begins at après-midi. After bon après-midi is bonsoir, but before bonsoir is bon début de soir. And at exactly 17:53 is bon between the end of good afternoon and the beginning of the start of bonsoir. And then the next lesson is the rules for kissing in an office, which seem to be different in every office. So you start at a new job and they'll say, d'accord, here we give a little kiss on the left and then a longer kiss on the right and then a second kiss on the left with a cuddle and a big kiss on the nose, a slightly sexual little tickle of the toes. And then we We do the same for each person, and then we go up to the second floor and start again with everybody, and then we must give a huge sexually charged kiss to the photocopier. And then it is time for lunch. But even with all these rules, Paris, nobody ever gets stressed. You will never see anyone stressed in Paris. It's perfect for relaxing here. And the finest way to keep calm is to drive round the streets in the centre, particularly the Arc de Triomphe. So this is true. I took a taxi here once, and the driver was looking under the steering wheel, not looking at all at the road, looking under the steering wheel. And I thought, he lost something. I said, have you dropped your wallet or something? Est-ce que tu as perdu ton portefeuille? And he said, no, I watched the football. You want to watch with me? Now, you can tell that this is a city of philosophy, because across Paris there is something very, very philosophical: roadworks that never finish. There should be traffic signs that say, "We are sorry for the delay. The roadworks on the Rue Lafayette are essential because it is important for all of us to consider the nature of time." The world will also thank Paris for having found the perfect way to solve the problem of overcrowded roads in city centres that are dangerous, which is to add 1 million trottinettes to keep everybody calm. So these are the little scooters that are like wasps, and they go everywhere. They're under your legs and under your coat and under your children, and they zigzag in all directions across the road. How are they not getting killed? But the explanation is that all the taxis miss them because they're on the pavement driving, watching Barcelona versus Real Madrid. I don't know why anybody drives in Paris. The metro's brilliant, and it's everywhere. There's millions of metro stops. There's one for every apartment. You look at the map when you're not used to Paris, and you think, oh, I've got to go 5 stops. So you go down the stairs, and you wait for the train. Boulevard du Clichy. You do that 5 times, then you arrive at the 5th stop, you go up the stairs through the weird, automatic, slightly violent doors, climb up the steps to the street and go, oh, I'm on the other side of the road to where I start. Also, in any normal town, the names of the stations explain where the station is. And some of the metro stops here, Rue de Rivoli, it's on Rue de Rivoli. But only in Paris could you find stops such as Robespierre. Oh, so this area is called Robespierre, is it? No. Yet there was no such place. Oh, is someone you want to remember? No, we named the stop after him because we ate him. There's a stop called Stalingrad. The first time I went there, I thought, I'm obviously so lost. All the stations are close together except for one that goes under the whole of Europe and arrives in Russia 50 years ago. There's a metro stop called Europe that makes you think, I think you need to be a bit more precise. There's one called Urk. Urk. We've taken a wrong turning and landed in Middle-earth. On line 4, there's a stop called Barbara. If you ask who is she, Barbara. She is Barbara. She works in the florist, and so we named it a station after her. We should name stations like this in London. If you're going to the Tower of London, you'll need to get off at Dave. But you do it on purpose to confuse foreigners. We know you do. And so you have names of stations for people who never came here, for towns that don't exist, for towns in another country. The one thing you don't have a station for is the Eiffel Tower. That's the only thing. Now, I made a stupid mistake. Once you know Paris a little bit, you don't make this mistake. I tried to change lines at Châtelet. That is catastrophe. It's impossible. You leave the platform and then you enter this underground city and you walk for 20 minutes until eventually you ask someone, where is line 14, please? And they answer, So you try to find it yourself. You pass a gymnasium and a swimming pool and an airport, and you ask someone, oh, sorry, I'm lost. Where am I? You are in Tokyo. Have you ever been lost there, anyone? Yes. At least it is simple to buy a ticket on the metro. You wait for 20 minutes by a little office at the entrance to the station until someone returns with the minimum amount of enthusiasm that it's possible to display while still being alive. And then you ask, which ticket do I need? And they say, you have to decide if you want a T-Plus ticket or Navigo on your iPhone or a Mobilis for the RATP or a Visit Paris ticket or RAR, but you'll need another ticket for the RAR. You can have one ticket or a Carnet, which is 10 tickets for the price of 9 3/4. It's simple, and then they leave. Right? And in other capitals, such as Rome or Berlin, the thieves are in the shadows. But in the metro, they aren't ashamed. At Barbès Rochechouart, I felt something next to me. I looked and there was a bloke with his hand in my pocket, on my wallet. And I said, "Oi, qu'est-ce que tu fais?" And honestly, he went, "Je suis un pickpocket." They're so brazen. You expect them to go, "Bonjour, we are your thieves for today." And if you go, "What? Go away." "I said bonjour!" I really like it when Parisians are rude. This is true. I went to the Luxembourg Museum once, and I had this huge suitcase as I was going off to the Eurostar after there, and I couldn't find the door, right? So I asked this security man in a uniform, and I said, "Je cherche le porte," and he said, "J'ai là 200 mètres." I said, "Merci, monsieur." So I went 200 metres, and I found this huge gate with a chain right round it that was padlocked, and there was a massive sign bolted across it that said, "Fermé." So I went back to the security guard and I said, "It's shut." And he went, "Oui." I said, "You knew it was shut, didn't you?" And he went, "Oui." I said, "Why did you send me there then?" And he went, "Je ne sais pas." And you can't help love someone for that. See, Paris is proud for so many reasons, particularly because you are so good at bureaucracy. You're the world champions at it. It's so imaginative here, the bureaucracy here. You build entire systems that are completely impossible to get through. You are trying to rent an apartment, you'll need 4 guarantors, you must live in France. One must be a lawyer, one must be the president, one must be a sex worker in the Pigalle, and one must have won a gold medal at the Winter Olympics. If you want to become a resident in France, you'll need a carte de séjour. You have to go for an interview with proof of salary in France, even though the reason you want the thing is that without it you can't work in France. And then they say, "Maybe I can help you. Have you got your birth certificate?" "Yes, it's at home." "Oh, you have to carry it at all times." The next day you come back with the birth certificate. No, the birth certificate must have been issued in the last 3 months. This is true, isn't it? It's just like, you always seem to need it. Everything for 3 months. It seems to me that most things are 3 months. If you're in the grocer's, "I'd like 1/2 kilo of mushrooms, please." "Certainly, 1/2 kilo, there we are." "Have you got your birth certificate issued in the last 3 months?" "I'm sorry, what? In the last 3 months?" 3! Let me write that. 3! And if you find it, you go back and they'll say, "Good." And now the next step is to go to the Préfecture de Police at 5 in the morning to queue for 3 days. You're not queuing for anything. You just have to queue for so long that your birth certificate is more than 3 months old. You have to then get a new one. When you have queued enough, come back here. Don't forget to bring a gas bill, a receipt for fresh beetroot with a reference from the grocer about your standard of French, and then show me signed photos of 3 relatives, one of which must have died before photos were invented." And then after several months of this, one day all of a sudden they'll go, "Voila, here it is, you've suffered enough, bye." But maybe this explains the Parisian culture, which is so complicated, because Parisians are so friendly and helpful and then foul and grumpy, all in the same sentence. "Monsieur, allow me to help you with your suitcase. Why is it such a horrible colour, so ugly? You are a moron. Bonne journée, monsieur. Good luck, bon courage." And the language is so difficult. In Nantes or Limoges, you can make these little mistakes and they answer, "I understand." But in Paris, you're more likely to go, "Quoi? Why have you said the letters that we have written?" The most important lesson when you're learning French is never to pronounce the last 7/8 of the word. So you can get a French word that can be spelt BEAILLOUEMENTECEUX, and the correct pronunciation is it. The woman who was teaching me French, she sometimes get across, no, c'est la table. Pourquoi tu as dit le table? C'est la table, c'est féminin. Oh, and in the end, I just said no, because this table identifies as masculine. I'll tell you, when I realised how much I adored the French language was about 20 years ago, and I was here and I was watching the television, and Jurassic Park was on French television, and it was dubbed into French, and I thought, even Jurassic Park is romantic in French. Even Jurassic Park. In fact, it's quite disappointing because the dinosaurs aren't dubbed, and I was sort of, and I was hoping that they would be going, je te mange. The word I think that expresses the difference between English and French more than any other is the verb for what a happy cat says. The happy cat noise. In English, we say the cat purrs. It's so English, that word, because it sort of tries to describe it, but not really. Like, you feed a cat, it's in front of the fire, it's happy. It doesn't go, purr. But when they were making all the words up, we were English, so they must have gone, right, what's the next word? We've got to have something. What is it? The happy cat noise. Okay, remind me again, what does it say? Well, it goes, well, we can't go around saying, for goodness sake, we've got an empire to run. Purr, that's near enough, that'll do. Right. But of course, in French, the word for the same thing is ronronner. So expressive, le chat est content, il ronronne. I think in German the word is Katzen snorren! At this point, I would like to introduce Yassine. Are you here, Yassine?
Yes.
So Yassine Bellous, some of you may know, a lot of you may know. And
Hello. Bonjour.
Bonjour, Yassine. And so you are a comic who does shows both in France and England.
Yes, I performed in France most of the time, but I have a show in English, and I performed in 18 countries in English and in England. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to try Japanese next. So, yes, I'm really interested in this. So, are there any jokes that work in Paris but not in London, or in London but not in Paris?
The jokes and the comedy is more or less the same. I made people laugh here and in England too, and in Russia too, but sometimes the references are different. I had a joke with a French TV host called Michel Drucker, and the name is funny for the French people, and Michel Drucker is the oldest TV host. It's like he's a Highlander, cannot die, because he's super, super old, and he's still on TV, and so that's a little bit funny. But I cannot use that name in England, so I had to change the joke.
In Paris, is an audience a little bit sort of boff, or can it get excited? How do you get over that?
We have this reputation that the audience in Paris is a bit like grumpy, but with time we learn the trendiness of the stand-up comedy. The audience is more like you are in Britain, like shouting and screaming, and just being more active in the audience. So we are changing. In the past we were more like in the theater, like let me see what you have, and now people are more like, yay, try to, make noises and stuff. Yeah.
You have to train them. Yeah? The audiences have to go to courses to learn what noises to make.
But I was surprised when I went in London. Yeah. When people were just screaming like, yay, this, we don't do that in France at all. It's like you are just there just to showing that you are in a good mood. You say like, yay, this is that.
Oh, well, and that's what American comics must really struggle, because they're used to coming on and going, whoa, 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 how you doing? How you doing? And if they did that here, you just go, ça va.
Yes, yeah, more or less that's what we do. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Justine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for being so lovely the last few days. Now, if you look out of the window here, you can see Notre Dame, and I think it's classically Parisian, because Notre Dame is not classically pretty. It's angles and bits sticking out, and it's burnt. The most brilliant symbols of Paris, the Moulin Rouge. Now, I went to the show at the Moulin Rouge. Honestly, one of the most amazing things I have ever seen. I don't want to give any spoilers. This is sort of what happened. About 50 dancers spin round and round as giant sparkly teapots, and then policemen do backflips and the splits while 20 topless women dance with 30-foot leaves coming out of their behind. And 2 men hang from the ceiling in blue and gold fluorescent silk, and then a giant tank full of water appears in which a woman dances with a giant python, and then more topless women dressed as lions crawl round the floor while clowns jump over them and a drunk woman screams "Vive la République," and about 50 dancers, each dressed as a giant octopus, appear while someone sings "I Will Survive," and that's before the can-can starts. I think it needs a touch more camp. So at this point, I am very pleased to introduce Mathilde. And Mathilde, you are a dancer at Moulin Rouge.
Yes, I am.
And first of all, what's the history? Do you get a sort of lesson in all the history of it when you go there, or do you already know that?
Well, I knew about it before because it was for me a dream to work there, so I knew everything about it before even starting my career.
So what bits were you in then, out of all those things? Were you a clown? Were you a lion?
Yesterday I was the lead dancer, so normally like the show is an hour 45 minutes, and I've got 12 different costumes and tableaux, included the French can-can.
Do you ever sort of go, oh, what's next? Am I supposed to be a penguin or a flamingo?
Not a penguin, but no, it's like I'm working there since 10 years, so I know the show by heart now. And now we've got dressers to help us. We've got like someone who's announcing what's the next tableau, and it's very, very well organized backstage.
Is it always like a brilliant reaction? I mean, like, people are very enthusiastic. They really cheer at the difficult bits. You know, I'm not a dancer.
We have different audience every night, and that's why I'm still on stage after 10 years, because it's never the same audience, so it's never the same show. And you can tell, for example, when you've got Americans, people in the front are like, yeah, girls. Like, you can see like the different like cultures. Like, people react differently, but it's always an amazing audience. We have like quite often like standing ovation, and it's amazing to work there because it's so famous and so iconic. So it's a dream for a dancer to work there. Brilliant.
I do think it's one of the most brilliant things you could do. Thank you very much to Mathilde. Another difference here between Paris and London, I think, and I'm jealous of you about this, there's such a difference because in Britain, people boast about how much money they earn. I earn all this in a month. I'll get up at 6, I'll go to bed at midnight, I'll never have a day off, but it's worth it because in 5 years I can afford a settee. And in Paris, you go, I've found a job that is perfect. I get 20 weeks a year holiday. I don't work on a Monday or a Friday or a Thursday. In Paris, no one works in May because every day is a bank holiday. No one works in August because that's the holiday. No one works in September because it's called la rentrée, when everyone comes back to work and you don't want to rush. No one works in December because it's Christmas, and someone honestly told me no one works in June because it's nearly July. You can tell who's English at a cafe here because they open their laptops and they chew a sandwich while they're writing, and at the same time the Parisians are just looking at the world. And here someone says, I started in a new job last week, and after an hour I went on holiday to recharge my batteries. And so I called my boss to tell him, but he wasn't at work because it was only 6 months to July. It's brilliant. It means you're less stressed. You're too relaxed. This is why you have to drive around the Arc de Triomphe to get your heart rate moving. Now, here's a huge subject. Tell me if this is true. Many people at the moment are complaining how Paris is becoming moche, ugly. Yep. I've heard people saying, oh, Paris is now full of smells, les petites ordures. I think you need moche in Paris. It's part of the charm of Paris that you see the odd pile of rubbish. I arrived on the Eurostar, came to the metro at Bastille, and when I got out, I thought, you're in Paris. That's what's meant to be there. You've got a museum of sewers. You can't have a museum of sewers and then complain about little smells. Politics here is just fascinating. I find the rules of the presidential election are so French. There's a president that no one likes and against him 12 candidates who are all insane. That's just... And I tell you, I love Jean-Luc Mélenchon because he's funny. He does these grand speeches. Ce matin, je regardais les poubelles à Avenue l'Opéra et je réalisais que nous sommes dans une époque historique. J'ai vu un petit guêpe et j'ai dit à la petite guêpe, volez, volez pour la liberté, volez pour les travailleurs, volez pour les pauvres, pour les communautés, pour l'avenir du monde. Elle m'a piqué. Doing 30 seconds in French on Radio 4 is probably guaranteed to get the BBC shut down. I think in Paris you want your politicians to be philosophers. In Paris the rubbish men all go, what is it, this life? We're not all destined for landfill. I was watching French news and a commentator said to understand the Black Lives Matter protest, we have to read Aristotle. I imagine in the main football programme in Paris, the presenter says, what a dramatic match between Lille and Marseille. With me in the studio is David Ginola and Thierry Henry. But first, why do you think Lille won 1-0? Professor Alain Badiou, Marxist philosopher from the Sorbonne. I saw the Marseille goalkeeper. He was on his own in the box like a lost soul. If a man is not part of the collective spirit, is he a man? Or is he a camel in a tomato? The spirit in Paris has been built from history, from so many revolutions. The French Revolution, one of the most powerful moments in history, and maybe the most dramatic moment was the execution of the king at the place that's now called Place de la Concorde. And it's recorded that the king arrived for his execution at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he remained calm and spoke from the scaffold, called out to the vast crowd, "Bonjour, my friends." But the crowd was hostile and cried back, "No, it's bon après-midi, madame." And then there were more revolutions in 1830, which happened so that there could be Les Miserables. And so often Paris is in the centre of the world in a way that changes history. But you just seem to go, yes, I suppose so, you're used to it. You can come if you want, but do you have to block the entrance to the metro while you work out which line you need, or stand in the road working out which building is the agency and call my agent? You should be so proud of what you've given the world. In other countries, what's annoying here is hilarious. It's like a big art installation, Paris. The pickpockets are funny, the rioters are funny. It's funny that there's a recognised condition called Paris syndrome. Have you heard of this? It's not real, is it?
Yes, 12 people a year.
12 people a year?
12 Japanese people.
12 Japanese people a year. So the symptoms I read are becoming anxious, vomiting, feeling dizzy and having hallucinations. See, this is why you should be proud. You don't get hallucinations in Nantes or Limoges, do you? The tourists here know the bateau mouche that goes along the Seine, pointing out the sights. All the while I've been on this boat, I've been expecting one of them to crash into us and the pilot to say, "Je suis désolé, I was watching the football." So I will leave you, Paris, with a page from the novel of Paris, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, who breathes with the spirit of the great city. And this bit in particular I'll finish with because I think it sums up that spirit. The hunchback sat in the corner, sad, shabby, until he was at last approached by a beautiful woman with wistful eyes and a curious smile. "Excuse me, I'd like to take a selfie with you. My name is Emily." "Look out!" Emily cried, but it was too late. The hunchback had been struck and fell to the floor, screaming, having been hit by a trottinette. There was a scream of pain. The hunchback cried into the air, "The bells! The bells!" "I'm sorry, Mr. Hunchback," said a man from the Prefecture de Police. "It's not possible to deliver the bells without a birth certificate." Thank you very much, Paris.
Marc Steele en ville est une émission écrite et présentée par Marc Steele, produite par Carl Cooper, Richard Morris et avec des mots additionnels de Pete Sinclair et Fatima Belayouzi. C'est une production de la BBC Studio pour BBC Radio 4.
Merci beaucoup. Oh, I would stay back and have a chat with you, but there's another audience coming in to listen to it all in a language I don't even speak. Thank you very much.